I didn't raise my voice when the HOA president tried to cut me off mid-sentence. She leaned forward, lips pressed in, and told me I had no authority to override community design standards. I didn't argue. I simply slid a stamped city violation order across the table. The room went completely silent. When my wife and I moved into the neighborhood, we weren't looking for conflict. We were looking for peace. The previous year had changed everything. An accident left her dependent on a wheelchair, and suddenly every staircase, doorway, and narrow hallway became an obstacle. We toured dozens of houses before finding one that worked: single-level layout, wide halls, manageable yard. It wasn't perfect, but it was possible. The only real barrier was the front steps. So I built a ramp. Nothing flashy. Pressure-treated wood. Proper anchoring. Handrails. ADA-compliant slope, 1 inch of rise for every 12 inches of run. I measured it 3 times before securing the final bolts. When it was finished, my wife rolled down it slowly for the first time. She didn't say anything at first. She just smiled. It was freedom in its simplest form. 3 weeks later, the first letter arrived. Structural addition not approved by HOA Architectural Committee. Disrupts uniform aesthetic. Subject to daily fines if not removed within 10 days. I read it twice before showing her. She tried to brush it off, assuming it was a misunderstanding. I wasn't so sure. I'd heard enough HOA horror stories to recognize the tone. It wasn't confusion. It was control. I emailed the board immediately. Attached ADA references. Included slope calculations. Even invited them to inspect the ramp in person. I explained that accessibility accommodations are federally protected and cannot be denied based on aesthetics. They didn't respond. Instead, a second letter arrived. This one mentioned forced removal and escalating penalties. That night, my wife cried quietly beside me. Not because of the fines, but because she was afraid they would tear it out while we were gone. The thought of losing that small independence shook her more than she admitted. That was when I decided I wasn't going to argue emotionally anymore. I was going to document everything. I attended the next HOA meeting. Calm. Organized. Prepared. When it was my turn to speak, I explained that the ramp wasn't decorative. It was medically necessary. I used plain language. No accusations. The president barely let me finish. Rules are rules, she said. If your wife needs special accommodations, perhaps you should consider using the garage entrance like other residents. The room shifted uncomfortably. In that moment, something inside me changed. It wasn't anger. It was clarity. This wasn't about guidelines. This was about power. And power only understands consequences. I began building a case. I kept copies of every letter. Logged dates of every interaction. Saved voicemails. Photographed the ramp from multiple angles with a measuring tape visible to prove compliance. I printed sections of the ADA and highlighted passages regarding reasonable accommodation and discrimination under housing protections. Then I contacted the city's building inspection department. I expected indifference. Instead, the inspector assigned to our district listened carefully. He asked detailed questions. A week later, he showed up at our home with a clipboard and a level. He examined everything. Slope ratio. Landing clearance. Rail height. Anchoring bolts. He nodded more than once. This is better than some commercial installs I've approved, he said quietly. Then I handed him the HOA letters. He read them slowly. His expression tightened. They can't threaten removal over a protected accommodation, he said. That crosses a line. He took copies with him. A week later, an official envelope arrived, but it wasn't addressed to me. It was addressed to the HOA. The city had issued a formal violation notice. The HOA was cited for interfering with a lawful accessibility modification and for allowing their contracted landscaping crew to damage part of the ramp railing during routine yard work, something I hadn't even known I could challenge. The order required them to cease harassment immediately. It also required them to repair and reconstruct the damaged section of the ramp at their expense under city supervision. Stamped. Signed. Enforceable. Which brings us back to that meeting. When the president attempted to silence me, I didn't argue. I didn't quote federal statutes. I didn't raise my voice. I slid the document across the table. Their attorney reached for it first. His casual expression faded as he read the first page. He flipped to the second. Cleared his throat. Whispered something to the president. Her posture changed instantly. The authority she'd worn like armor for months evaporated in real time. This will need to be reviewed, the lawyer muttered carefully. It already has been, I replied evenly. No one interrupted me after that. The aftermath was swift. Within 2 weeks, a licensed contractor hired by the HOA arrived to rebuild and reinforce the ramp. The same city inspectors supervised portions of the work. Neighbors watched curiously as fresh lumber replaced the damaged railing and additional supports were installed. No one from the board apologized. They didn't have to. The message was clear. Since then, the notices stopped. The emails stopped. The tone shifted from confrontational to cautious. A few board members quietly resigned in the following months. Officially, it was for personal reasons. Maybe it was. Or maybe they realized that authority without understanding the law is just borrowed power. Now, when my wife rolls down that ramp, it's sturdier than before. Reinforced. Solid. Permanent. And every time the wheels hit the driveway smoothly, I'm reminded of something important. You don't win every battle by shouting. Sometimes you win by documenting. By staying calm. By letting the right authority speak for you. The HOA thought they were enforcing aesthetics. Instead, they funded the strongest ramp on the block. And in the end, the only thing that truly changed the neighborhood wasn't the wood, or the slope, or the rails. It was the silence that fell when petty power met real law.